Salutations and welcome to the farm. Well, it is a beautiful day outside here in Iowa, even though the temperature is frigidly cold. The sun is out and shining, and I thought even though it's sunshiny and beautiful, it's a perfect chilly day for making some cookies. So I got down one of my old vintage cookbooks that we picked up the other day when we went to the antique store, and I'll put a link to that up above if you want to see that antique store haul. And this is a Dundee, Iowa Centennial Cookbook that we're going to be making some cookies out of today. This is when this little town here in Iowa turned 100 years old. So I found a little recipe for cookies that I thought would be fun to bake today. So this recipe that we're going to be using today is by Marge W. And I appreciate her. I'm not even sure if she's still with us. This book is pretty old. It was published and put out in 1987. I was around in 1987. I'm still here. Let's hope that Marge W is still here. And we're going to use her recipe today for chocolate star cookies. And forgive me, I'm working with a bad wrist, so things are a little slow. I've got some issues with it that I'm trying to let heal, but I think we'll be okay with these cookies today. So let's make the cookie dough first. All of the ingredients will be up on the blackboard for you so you can follow along. The first thing we're going to start with is 1 cup of shortening. Now remember, this is a vintage cookbook, so it doesn't call for margarine or butter. It calls for either oleo or shortening. So I've got 1 cup of Crisco measured out here, and hopefully with my wrist I can push this out without hurting myself too much. Got this really nifty little measuring cup the other day. We've already put our shortening into the bowl, and the first step is to cream that shortening. I wanted to use my KitchenAid today, but with my wrist I couldn't lift it to bring it over to my workstation. So we're just going to have to use my little mixer today. So I'm going to try to gracefully add 1 cup of peanut butter in here. Peanut butter, shortening, anything that's not pre-measured like a stick of butter can be so difficult sometimes to measure out. And I'm hoping that this little measuring cup will make things a little easier for me. Let's see if we can, I'm telling you, that wrist. It's not going to keep me from making cookies though. There we go. We're also going to add 1 cup of white sugar, 1 cup of brown sugar. We'll cream all this in with our peanut butter and our shortening. Okay. And the recipe also calls for 2 eggs. So in they go. No double yolkers this time. Regular eggs. And let's cream that together. The next step in our cookies is to add sifted dry ingredients. I have 3 cups of flour, all-purpose flour. I also have 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to add that to my flour, and the instructions call for everything to be sifted. So I think we're just going to add about a cup at a time. 1 last ingredient, 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla. A little bit over never hurt anybody. So next it tells us to just go ahead and roll our dough into little balls. And before we place them on the cookie sheet, it says to dip just 1/2 of them in sugar. So I've got a little bowl of sugar here. It says just dip 1/2. Now what is funny is it doesn't say how to lay these out onto the cookie sheet. Do you lay the sugar side up? Do you do it 1/2 and 1/2? I don't know. I'm going to do it 1/2 and 1/2 on one, and sugar side up on the next one. Now I have a very small toaster oven that I do all of my baking in. I don't have a traditional oven, so I'm only going to be able to do between 4 and 6 at a time. I've got my oven preheated at 375 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and get my cookies on my cookie sheet, get them in, and they will bake, according to the instructions here, about 8 minutes, and then we'll be back. 8 minutes have gone by. I've pulled the cookies out of the oven. They have just the lightest hint of brown. So now we're going to take our chocolate stars and we're going to place one in the middle of each cookie. You press down, and as you press down, the cookie kind of bursts open a little bit from that little mound that it was, and the chocolate star presses into the middle. And I'm going to say it doesn't matter whether you have the sugar all up or halfway. I'm just going to do them all up from now on based on what I see here. And these are going to go into the oven for another 5 minutes. Chocolate stars were my mother's favorite. She was in a care facility for a few years before she passed away. And on bingo days, whenever she would win bingo, she would always ask for a little bag of chocolate stars. It's one of the reasons I chose the recipe, was to do it for my mom. Our last little batch for the day is out of the oven. They look beautiful. Ding, I took them out right before the timer dinged. I'm going to set them here. I'm going to let them cool just a little bit before I move them to a cooling rack. These have been cooling for about 10 minutes, and I'll transfer them over onto a little serving platter. But they're beautiful. They're golden brown with just that little chocolate star in the middle. They're just lovely. So we'll just put them over here on this little platter that I've put together. I'll take my picture with that. Put that one there. Let them cool, then move them over onto your cooling rack. Now you also really want to keep an eye on the temperature of your oven. My oven runs a little hot, so I had to turn it down a little bit. 375 was too high. You want them just a light golden brown. Put your chocolate stars in the middle and then just let them finish out for a minute or two. The recipe says 5 minutes. I didn't let them go more than 2 or 3 minutes after I put the chocolate stars on, and they really do look lovely. So also I want to note that the recipe in the book, I halved it, so the recipe that will be up on the blackboard is halved. And you will probably get, I'm going to say you're probably going to get 2 or 3 dozen just on the halved recipe. You can double it without any problem. I've already got some of the cookie dough shaped and ready for tomorrow. I'll just put a cover on this, I'll put them in the refrigerator, and then in the next couple days, I'll bake these up as well. But for tonight, after dinner, we've got a lovely little tray of little chocolate star cookies to enjoy while we watch TV. Thank you for joining me here at the farm. I hope you had a great time baking chocolate star cookies with me. I look forward to seeing you again. Until then, take care and have a blessed day.